All right, welcome to our backbends lesson. Right now we're going to be working on our backbends with a mixed level class, and I'm going to try to help you guys figure out how to keep the class interesting for the advanced practitioner, but also inclusive for someone that's been working with injuries. All right, we'll start off in our down dog. And first, I'm going to give the students some space to do what they like to do in their posture, and also kind of spy on them and figure out how we can make the pose work a little bit better for them. Good. And then at this point, I'm going to ask them to push the floor away. What that will do is it gets the arms straighter, and it also creates more space between the shoulder blade and the waist. So there's a little bit more liftedness in the lateral portion of the shoulder. And at the same time, we don't want to be scrunching the traps at the base of the neck. So yeah, you can have them nod the head. Make sure they're loosey-goosey enough there. And actually, Alyssa, why don't you take your hands a little bit wider as well? Good, and then once again, hugging the triceps in and pushing the floor away. A little engagement here. And then lift the heels high and drop them over to the right. What we'll do here is press the left hand down a little bit more and get a bit more of a stretch on the lateral aspect of the left shoulder. Keeping the hips moving up and back, push the floor away a little more, and then up to the center, and second side. And back to center. We'll lift the heels high, bend the knees, and move the chest toward the thighs. So the buttocks still lift up, and then move the chest. So we're opening up the angle between the tricep and the torso. So part of what creates a little bit more of an illusion of a back bend is moving the arm more to the back body. For many of us, it's hard to keep spaciousness, upward scapular rotation in the shoulder, while we're moving the arm to the back body. So that's what we're working on here. Good. Hug the arms in a little bit more, push the floor away. And then straighten the legs, neutral down dog. Inhale, plank pose. Place the knees down. Create a bend in the back, so buttocks up. Move the chest forward and land the chest between the palms. Chin can land as well. And then in this position, think of contracting the muscles just below the shoulder blades toward the buttocks. So a little bit of a engagement in the mid-upper back. And then soften down. Good, go ahead, extend the toes, place the tops of the feet on the floor. And then we'll move toward a Sphinx pose here. So the elbows will stack underneath the shoulders. Good, and in this position, we're gonna press the elbows down to create more of a lift in the sternum. So go ahead and just sink your chest for a second. So this is kind of a common thing that may happen. To avoid that, once again, I tell her, push the elbows down, lift the chest. That's it. Then to create more of a bend in the back, we're gonna start to draw the elbows toward the back of the space. Good, so they don't move literally, it's an isometric contraction. And then we're gonna press the tops of the feet down to engage the belly. Those two actions seem to oppose each other, but we're going to do them both at the same time. So the elbows are drawing back while the belly's engaged. And now for Devin, we're going to have her lift her elbows 1 inch and pull the palms toward the back of the space. Simultaneously attempting to crawl the back bend up her spine, I'm going to have her lift her low belly off of the floor. Good, and her buttocks engage, which for her, that means it's fine. To squeeze or not to squeeze depends on the yogi. All right, so she's crawling the back bend up by engaging the belly, but pulling the elbows back. And then we'll both relax. Good, and then you're gonna go ahead and move the hands to the up dog position, so closer to the sides of the waist. And then we're gonna coil the upper back, push the floor away, and come to up dog. Good, in the up dog, both of these ladies have done a good job of hugging the ankles in, but sometimes you'll see students who flail the ankles out, like so. We're gonna keep them hugging in, so there's an engagement of the inner thighs, and then push the floor away, lift the center of the chest. Good, and if there is compression in the low back, you'll just ask the students to engage their low belly like in Sphinx, and then pull it back, down dog. And then we'll go ahead and walk our feet forward. Inhale to a flat back position, so you can place the hands on the shins. Good, and then feel a little contraction in the back muscles as the shoulder blades pull to the waist. And then fold in and make your way. Good. Place the fingertips to the floor and step the left foot back. Good. Now we're going to go ahead and reach the right palm up. So we're starting to lubricate the spine a little bit here, getting ready for our deeper back bends. The right hip is drawing back, and the center of the chest extends forward. So the sternum is reaching forward, the collarbones are broad, and the shoulder blades are broad as well. You also may find, in an attempt to hug the front knee toward the midline, students will let the back ankle sickle out. So we want to keep the hips mostly level. So in order to hug the left hip, the back leg's hip to the midline, you can ask your students to hug their back ankle to the midline. The hip usually follows. And then we'll come up to crescent pose. Good. So in this position, we're going to start to focus on the legs a little bit more. The heels are hugging toward each other, inner thigh engagement. Now we're going to focus on stretching the left hip flexor. You'll see it better on the other side. So Devon's going to go ahead and place her right hand on her thigh, Alyssa the same. All right, we'll place a little bend in the back knee, and that helps lift the low belly. So we're creating more space between the torso and the back thigh. We're going to try and keep that lift as we straighten the leg, increasing the angle there. And again, you'll see it better on the second side. Good. And then we'll go ahead and lean to the right, furthering the stretch at the hip flexor. So another thing that creates a deeper looking back bend is the body's ability to move the leg to the back body. That's what we're working here. Good. And then you'll slide the front thumb to the hip crease, and then go ahead and take a twist. All right. In this position, if you're like me, sometimes I round my back to get into the pose, but then press the left elbow down and extend the center of the chest forward. Good, so that front hip is drawing back. The left ribs are reaching away from the waist, but the shoulder is still passive at the trap. Inhale, both arms up. And then you can use either your hands or not. Take the back knee down. Good. From here, you want to be more on the bottom of the left thigh rather than the kneecap. The left hand can come down. And then you'll go ahead and reach the right arm back and grab hold of the foot. Okay, now what she's done is she's grabbed hold of the pinky toe side of the foot. That helps with opening up the pecs more. And often, to let the hips sink further in this pose, it's common to do what Devon's doing here, where she's letting the knee fall to the side, but that moves the stretch more into the outer hip. We want to do what Alyssa's doing. By hugging the knee toward the midline, we move the stretch to the hip flexor of that back leg, and you'll again see it a little bit more clearly on the second side. The idea is of the back thigh dropping and the torso lifting. And then release here, and step the back foot forward. And then we'll take it to the second side. As you're ready, step the right foot back. Good. And then from here, the left arm comes up. And of course, at any point, if you find the floor too far away for your hands, use a block. Common sense. All right, from here, we're softening the trap, so we're practicing that idea of not tensing the muscles at the base of the neck as often as possible. Okay, we're extending the right side of the waist forward as we contract and twist the left side of the waist toward the right side of the body. The center of the chest is reaching forward, the left hip draws back. And then both arms come up, inhale. Good, so in this position, we're lengthening the sides of the waist through the outer shoulder to the fingertips, like wheel. And then we'll go ahead and bend the back knee. You can place the left hand on the thigh here. All right, and then we're gonna lift the low belly maximally. Keep the chest lifting at the same time. Okay, so we're trying to create more space between the torso and the thigh. The right hip is gonna roll forward, so inner thighs are engaged, and then start to stretch the back of the right knee. Not so much by pressing the heel back, but by reaching the outer hip forward. Good. Continue to keep the belly lifting. And then you can go ahead and slide the left thumb to the hip crease and take your right arm across. Press the right arm into the thigh, twist a little further. Feel the left side of the waist extend as the hip draws back. And then be mindful of that right hip dropping. Keep hugging the hip toward the midline as the chest reaches forward. Inhale, both arms up. And then either hands down or not, place the back knee down. And then from here, the left hand comes to the block or the floor. The right hand. And then you'll go ahead, bend the right knee, grab hold of the foot. Yeah, we're grabbing hold of the pinky toe side of the foot. And again, if you can't reach, you got your handy dandy strap. And as you see, these ladies here, they're more on the bottom of the thigh than on the kneecap. So if you find the only way that you can reach your foot is by being on the kneecap, use the strap. All right? So here, once again, we're thinking of lifting the torso up as we drop the hip down. So we're increasing the angle between this guy and this guy. Maybe you pull the foot a little closer. Big quad, hug the left knee in. Extend the chest forward. And release. Good, step the back foot forward. And then go ahead, as you're ready, sit down. Okay. We're gonna move toward bridge pose. So go ahead and lay back. At this point, we're going to place our heels close to our hips, feet parallel and hip width apart. We want an engagement between the inner thighs, so when we go into the back bends, the knees don't splay apart. That can cause an impingement in the low back. All right, from here, I'm gonna have the ladies bend their elbows, pointing the fingertips toward the ceiling. Good. And then from here, we'll press the elbows down, keep the hips down, but pop the chest up. Yeah, so Devin knows where we're going. We're coiling the upper back and practicing creating more mobility in the place in the spine where there's naturally less. So the spine is curved outward in the upper back and inward in the low back. Often when we back bend, we just tend to sink into the more flexible area. So we're moving the back bend up the spine. And then we'll press the elbows down more, lift the hips up. Pause. In this position, think of the transverse abdominis. It's a big sheath of muscle that connects the whole low belly region, but the two hip points, we want to think of those hip points pulling toward each other. So it's almost like there's a widening of the buttocks. And then go ahead and interlace the fingers behind you. And if those directions were hard for you to feel in your body, just continue to pay attention and you will build the mind-body connection over time. See if you can lift the chest a little higher. If you're comfortable with it, you can wiggle the shoulder blades together. Just listen to your body's feedback, and if it feels uncomfortable, that's probably your body telling you something ain't right. And then hug the heels toward the shoulders. So what we've done now is we've engaged the lower part of the glutes, the hamstrings. Press the feet down more. Try to lift the hips a little higher, keeping the heels drawing toward the head. And then some students will naturally clench their buttocks. If that happens naturally and they're comfortable, more power to them. If they're in pain, let's stop. If they feel pain without clenching, let's try clenching. Everybody's different. That's the simplest way to explain it. Lift the chest a little higher and release. All right. Now we're gonna come back to a seated position. And you can have the legs crossed. And we're gonna start with one block. You can take your block between the forearms. See? And then from here, we're gonna take the block overhead. And what we're exploring right now is the angle between the upper arm and the torso. Just creating awareness of our range of motion. For most of us, we're going to think of lifting the outer shoulder to the elbows, but there will be exceptions where retracting the shoulder blades is appropriate, and we'll get to that. And then release. To start opening up those shoulders a bit more, we're going to take the strap. We'll start in the left hand. All right? And in this position, you want the palm to be closer to its own side of the body. Then you're going to take your right hand, and instead of reaching up the strap, you can just grab hold lower where it's comfortable. And you'll start to pull the left arm closer to the back of the body. So we want to do our best to keep the elbow in line with the shoulder and the hand in line with the elbow. But I recommend practicing the 80-20 rule. Don't do it so much that it causes extra tension. Just do it enough so that there's engagement, but it's a supple type of strength, not an aggressive one. Maybe you can use the right arm, pull the arm back a little bit further. And notice how neither of them let their bellies drop out to stretch the shoulder. They kept their core engaged, so we're not back bending yet. And then release. Switch the crossing of your legs, just for symmetry in the hips. We'll take it to side two. All right, so that elbow is hugging toward the midline, and then we're pressing up, and we're moving back. Good. And right now, watching Alyssa, I can see if she tries to move her hand more toward the right, so it's in line with her shoulder, the elbow flares out further. If I forcibly do so, how does that feel?
It's actually okay.
Oh, it's okay. Never mind.
It's not too bad.
Not too bad. So we can start to work with more external rotation in the postures where the arms are overhead. Press the elbow up a little bit more. So this would be internal rotation. This would be more external. External, internal, external, internal, external, internal. Maybe we move the arm back a little bit more. And release. All right, so now we're going to do similar work, both elbows at the same time, or both shoulders, using the blocks. So they'll set themselves up with the blocks shoulder width apart, and we're going to have the knees hip width apart, and the knees will stack just underneath the hips. And we're going to place the back of the elbow, not the inner elbow, but the back of the elbow on the block. And then we're going to take the palms together and drop the chest toward the floor. If your forehead hits the floor easily, then lift the forehead a millimeter and focus on softening the chest toward the floor. Now, Devin, I'm certain, is ready for more external rotation in her shoulders. So we're going to place a block between her palms. Let's see how Alyssa does. We don't have another block, but I'm going to place my hand here, and the elbows start to sink out. We see the wobbly block. So I'm going to just leave her with her palms together. Okay, and that's just a direction we'll move in down the line. But for now, we can keep the palms together and have the shoulders a little bit more internally rotated, a little bit more retraction, a little bit more protraction. Sink the chest a little lower, bring the hands closer to the back, and then again, 80-20 rule. And lift up. All right. Now, we're going to move toward a hollow back. Devin's going to do it upside down. Alyssa's going to do it right side up. All right, so Devin kind of knows what she's doing. I'll talk about what she does after. I'm going to help Alyssa out here. So what we're working on is, instead of swaying the hips forward and crunching the low back, pressing the hips back a little bit, so a little bit of butt out, but more importantly, lifting the chest up. So I'm gonna help her out, taking the sides of her waist and wrapping it up, and then she's gonna reach the arms overhead. Reach, up and back, up and back. Good. And then from here, she's just gonna try and work on getting the arms straighter. Now, if you feel neck discomfort, you're not alone. Both of these ladies have complained about it before. Some of us prefer to relax the neck. Others of us prefer tucking the chin and drawing back. Okay, what Devon's doing here, she's moving the chest more toward the center of the room, opening the upper back. So she's in a wheel pose, both of them in their upper body right now. Okay? We just have more contraction at the hip flexors. For wheel, we're going to stretch out those hip flexors like crescent pose. All right, and then we'll make our way back up or down. And now we'll move toward wheel pose. So come back to your mats, lay down. All right. And then for Alyssa, I'm going to place my feet by her shoulders so that she doesn't have to have her palms flat. This makes the angle a little bit easier for her arms. All right, so, or I should say her shoulders. Both of them I'm gonna take Devon, hands by your ears. Okay, we're gonna do our best to hug the elbows to the midline, but for Alyssa, they'll probably splay out a little bit, just setting an intention, 80-20 rule. And then go ahead, push the floor away and lift up. So recalling the notes from the bridge pose, hugging the heels back, and then Devon, more chest toward me, opening the upper back, keep the belly engaged, push the floor away, a couple more breaths, and tuck the chin into the chest, and lower down. How are you doing?
Yay!
Yay! One more again. Let's do it. Hands by ears. Good. And then go ahead. This time we're going to come to the crown of the head and pause. Good. Figure out what you want to do with your shoulders. Retract a little bit or protract. And then go ahead, push the floor away, lift. Good. Hug the heels toward the shoulders. Keep the belly engaged. Push the floor away. Move the chest more toward me, but relax your neck. And tuck the chin to the chest. And then extend the left leg forward. Good. Draw the right knee into your chest. And then take the right knee across the body. Okay, and you can scoot your hips a little bit to your right. Good. And then in this position, you can think of that top hip moving away from the waist. So that will lengthen and create more spaciousness in the low back. So oftentimes, just to show you the difference, this will happen. What we're working on is creating space. And then we'll switch sides. And for this stretch, you can have the head in the opposite direction of the knee, so that the whole spine is in a twist. Twists are nice complements to back bends to neutralize the spine. There we go. And what I'm doing here is I'm pulling her knee closer to her chest and drawing the hip away from the chest to deepen the twist. And then come back to the center. Hug both knees in. And you can take a happy baby pose. So in happy baby, the hands are pulling the feet down. The hips are reaching away from the body, so it's like you want to back bend almost. You're sticking your butt out and toward the direction away from your head. And at the same time, your feet are pressing skyward. So your hands are pulling the feet down, the feet are pressing up, and your butt is reaching away from you. And release. I think it's time for Shavasana.